And welcome back to Wake Up America. I'm Tom Basili. The 2020 election remains contentious for many folks, and protecting election integrity is now a top priority in many states. Now, here to discuss how the situation has evolved over the last year, we have senior legal fellow and manager of the Election Law Reform Initiative at the Heritage Foundation and co-author of the new book, Our Broken Elections, How the Left Changed the Way You Vote, Hans von Spakovsky. Hans, good to have you on the program. Good to see you again.
Thanks for having me on.
So you've been a champion of election reform. You didn't just decide to do this. Like, you've been doing this as a career, both at Heritage and also at the Federal Elections Commission. You've been doing this for decades. Talk to us about the book, and talk to us over the course of that career, the changes that you've seen to the way that we vote in this country.
Well, what happened last year was kind of the apex of changes that, unfortunately, the progressive left has been trying to make for many, many years, often unsuccessfully. But they used COVID as an excuse and justification for it. And I say unfortunately because many of the rules that they want to put in are rules that endanger the integrity and security of the election process. The best example of that is that they want to get rid of and void all state voter ID laws. They don't like the idea of election officials actually asking someone to authenticate their identity when they vote. And Tom, you may have seen, this book is about what happened last year. But look, the Democrats have just abandoned their Build Back Better bill because they say they're going to go back to trying to push through several voting bills in Congress. Those federal voting bills basically have all of the changes in them that they've been wanting to put in for the last decade, getting rid of voter ID laws, making it difficult for states to verify the accuracy of voter registration rolls. It's just one provision after another. And it's as if they want to make it easy to cheat and easy to manipulate election results. It's really disappointing that they would do that.
But Hans, I know that that's now the Biden top priority. He says it's his top priority as a federal takeover elections. But I mean, they've got to realize that most of what's in that bill is of dubious constitutionality.
Yeah, they do. But this is something they are being pushed to do by the progressive groups that supply them with a lot of money and, frankly, with the political appointees that they have put in places like the Justice Department. I mean, that's why you've seen Merrick Garland and the folks under him, for example, file what are, I believe, meritless lawsuits against the election reform bills that Georgia passed, the election reform bill that Texas passed, because they are putting forth claims to satisfy their political allies. I think ultimately those lawsuits are going to lose, but both of those states, in the meantime, are going to have to spend a lot of money and fight hard against that litigation.
Hans, I want to look forward in terms of in terms of what the legislatures have done this year, but also what we anticipate they may do next year. Because what happened last year really woke up a lot of state legislatures. And let's be fair, Republicans in a lot of these legislatures consented to some of these so-called emergency provisions in the election law that were put in that were so problematic. So a lot of these states, dozens of them, they're coming together and they're looking seriously at election integrity issues. So in an effort of kind of being positive here, what have you seen that has kind of helped to put things back on the right track, and what are you watching for as you come into 2022 for additional reforms that you think are starting to bubble up in the states?
Well, in fact, if legislators want to see what to do, they should look at the final chapter of our book, because we have a whole list of recommendations there. And what states have done, for example, in Georgia and Texas, look, they had good voter ID laws, but they only applied to in-person voting. They've extended those ID laws to absentee balloting, which is a necessary component of any kind of election integrity. They've strengthened the rules to clean up their voter list. Texas, for example, put in a requirement that the Secretary of State start checking their records against DMV records to find people who've moved out of the state or people who are not U.S. citizens. Those are just basic steps to take to protect the election process. And I think legislators, many state legislators, as you know, are going to start up in January, And I think those that didn't get this accomplished then are going to try to accomplish it this coming year.
All right. Well, hopefully we're going to continue to see progress on this issue.
Yes.
And I think that so many Americans are so insulted by the fact that any bill that is introduced in any of these states is automatically deemed racist and the new Jim Crow by Joe Biden,
right?
The so-called unity president by Joe Biden and the Democrats. I think they've pushed way too far on this. Check out the book, Hans von Spakovsky and John Fund. You wrote that together with John Fund, who you're also familiar with from our network here. Let's you pick that up, and it's a great read. All right. Thank you so much for being with us, sir.
Thanks.